Good afternoon and welcome to NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. I'm Sandra Jones and we are here today to discuss an upcoming series of spacewalks outside the International Space Station focused on solar array upgrades. Here today to discuss the upcoming series of spacewalks, we have three briefers. They are Bill Spetch, the Operations Integration Manager for the International Space Station Program, Deanna Trujillo, Flight Director, as well as Ronak Dave, also a Flight Director. We're going to start with some opening remarks from each of our briefers before jumping into questions both in the room and on the phone bridge, as well as using the hashtag AskNASA on social media. If you are on the phone bridge and you would like to submit your question, please press *1 to submit it. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to Bill for his opening remarks.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here today to discuss the next two spacewalks outside the International Space Station. These will be the first two spacewalks for Expedition 74, the first of 2026, and the 278th and 279th in support of space station assembly, maintenance, and upgrades. Our first one, on Wednesday, March 18th, NASA astronauts Jessica Meir and Chris Williams will exit the station's Quest airlock to prep the 2A power channel for future International Space Station rollout solar arrays, or IROSAs. Once installed, this array will provide additional power generation for the orbital complex. Additionally, the duo will swab the outside of the space station to test for the presence of microorganisms. This will actually be Jessica's fourth spacewalk and the first spacewalk for Chris. Our second EVA, that will be Spacewalk 95. Two NASA astronauts will prepare the 3B power channel in much the same way we're doing for 2A for a future IROSA installation. We'll provide more information on the date and time of that spacewalk a little bit closer to the operation, and we'll also release the names of the spacewalkers once we get through this next EVA. Beyond the spacewalk, we've had a busy couple of months with a busy spring ahead. Following Crew 11 return and Crew 12 launch and docking, we've had a series of cargo mission operations. On February 26th, SpaceX 33 undocked from the space station, returning critical science and research back to Earth. On March 6th, JAXA's HTV-X1 was released from the space station's Canadarm and will remain in orbit for the next several months to conduct experiments before harmlessly burning up in the Earth's atmosphere. And just last week, on March 12th, an NG-23 spacecraft named the SS Willie McCool was unberthed and released from the Nader port of Unity. And of course, still going, early this morning, we had the undocking of Roscosmos Progress 92 Progress, that cargo spacecraft from the Poisk module. This marks the third cargo spacecraft to depart the station in 10 days, which is pretty impressive. Next week, we'll start working on filling those ports back up a little bit. We have the launch of Progress 94 following the repair of the pad at Baikonur. Progress 94 will dock 2 days later to the Poisk. So that launches Sunday, March 22nd at 6:59 a.m. Central. And docking will occur Tuesday, March 24th at 8:35 a.m. Central. And then to round out the near-term operations, we have the launch of the NG-24 spacecraft, targeting April 8th and launching from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. So we stay very, very busy on Space Station as we continue to progress through this year in this increment. And with that, I thank you guys again for being here and your interest in what we're doing. And I'll hand it over to Deanna to walk through the first EVA.
Thank you, Bill. Good afternoon. My name is Deanna Trujillo. I am the lead flight director for EVA 94. Today, I'm going to talk to you guys about what is it that we're going to cover during that EVA, what activities are we going to execute. So let's go to the first slide, starting with the team. Okay, our EVA crew will be Jessica Meir, just like Bill mentioned. She will be wearing the red stripe. And then Chris Williams will be wearing no stripe. He will be our second crew member. Next slide, please. Okay, like Bill just mentioned before, Jessica, this will be her fourth spacewalk, and this will be Chris's first spacewalk. Next slide, please. All right, and then helping them out, getting them on the suits, making sure that we're preparing to get out the door, and then the same way as they come back in, getting them out the suit and performing additional activities before they go back to sleep. It will be our two crew members, Jack Hathaway and then Sophie Adelont. Sophie actually will be also helping us out with some of the activities that we will be doing with the robotic arm, which you will see in a minute with some of the videos. Next slide, please. Okay, for the ground, we will have as our EVA officer will be Farouk Sabor, and then our ground IV will be Tracy Dyson, also another astronaut. Our Capcom, which will be communicated with the folks inside the space station as we're doing the spacewalk, it will be Scott Segati. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk about what we're actually going to do when we go outside the door. So as you can see from this image, really what we're trying to do here is go ahead and install the mod kit on 2 different locations. My colleague here, Ronak, will be covering the 3 Bravo location. I'll be covering the 2 Alpha location today. So once we go outside, the primary task really is to go ahead and install a holder, really, which we're calling the mod kit. It will be on the canister of the BGA, which is the gimbal on one of the solar arrays. What that will do will be to hold an iROSA, which is the rollout solar array. The rollout solar array, just like Bill mentioned before, it will be arriving to the station at a later time. Once that gets assembled and put on the station, it will look kind of like the 2 wings that you see, the 2 butterfly wings that you see on the 4 Bravo side. But this EVA will only focus on assembling the structure that will hold it. Next slide, please. Okay, so for this EVA, what else are we going to do? So like I just mentioned, we go 2 Alpha mod kit on that canister that you see facing down. That's where we're going to do the structure. It takes about in between 4 and 4.5 hours to actually get it assembled with the 2 crew members. After we do that, we have additional activities on the same vicinity, on that same area. So one of them will be a DDCU jumper, which is to give us redundancy on the power system. That would be Jessica going into the DDCU jumper. You see an arrow or a line there facing, really what it's doing is pointing to the face that's inside the page, where she will be going. As she's doing that, Chris is going to do 2 additional activities. Chris is going to go to the race ring on the solar array, so the rotary aspect or the mechanism for the solar array. He's going to go in there, take a picture to see what the current state of that is. Granted, the solar array itself is parked, so when Chris gets close to it, he's just going to see one sliver of that location so that we can take a snapshot of the current state. After he finishes that, he will come back to where you see the 2 astronauts in this animation. In that area, there are several boxes that Chris is going to remove the torque. So he's going to release the torque and then re-torque it, but at a lower value. The intent here is that it will allow us to, in the future, do robotic operations if we wanted to move any of those boxes. Right now, the torque that we currently have in is higher than what the capability of our robotic arm, so we just want to reduce it. After all of that is done, the crew will start packing up, and then we will head back to the airlock area where we will be doing 2 additional activities. One of those will be by Chris. If you could go to the prior slide. One of those activities will be done by Chris. He is looking at the microorganisms. Thank you. Yeah, so Chris will be doing the microorganisms, and Jessica, on the way back to the airlock, will stop and take care of a cover to one of the cameras that is on the robotic arm. So you'll see it on the video, but when the robotic arm gets closer to it, it has a camera kind of on the elbow area. Jessica is going to put a cover to it. It will be evident on the video when we go through it. Next slide, please. Okay. So let's talk about what we're going to do on the 2 Alpha mod kit when we get out there. So currently today, we have the triangle shape that you can see in this diagram, and then one of the lower struts, one of the lower rods. The ones that we're going to install is the red, blue, and green one. So that's the focus of this EVA. The prior parts of that bot kit were installed on the prior EVA that we did back with and in a few, I think it was last year, actually. Next slide, please. Okay, awesome. So what are we going to do with the microorganisms once we get to it? So once Chris gets closer to the area of the microorganisms, we're going to take about 5 samples. Samples that areas where we're going to take samples is one of them is on the glove, is one of those areas. The other area is really on the thermal cover, on the hatch area of the airlock. And then the other side is right at the rim of the airlock itself. So those are the key areas you're going to see Chris taking samples on. The beautiful part about the microorganisms is that the location is in the airlock, really, so we're just going to come back home and then just do the swaps there. Let's see. So with that, that is all the slides that I have for you today. Let's go ahead and cue up the video so I can walk folks through it. Okay, awesome. So like I was mentioning before, once the hatch open, we're gonna have Jessica coming out. First, she gets the strut bag, which is an 8-foot long bag, and then she gets the cable bag. Then Chris comes out. After they're both outside, Jessica will be the first one that will start translation to the P4 area where the mod kit is located. So you'll see it here in the animation. She starts moving through the truss all the way, there goes Jessica, all the way down to the mod kit. At the same time, Chris is going to do a quick stop, get a WIFX, which is an equipment that will give him more distance once he gets into the foot restraint, so he can reach to the mod kit itself. And so here goes Chris. Okay, great. Once they get there, they're going to cinch down the bags, and then they begin the installation. So they start with the mid strut, and then Jessica gets the other side, the left mid strut and the lower strut, hands it to Chris, who's already on the foot restraint. Then Jessica goes around, and Chris will then be turned so that he can be facing on the other side of the canister, where he will start now working with Jessica to put the mid struts themselves. Okay, so here's where they bolt the second mid strut. Okay, and after that, the whole assembly of the mod kit is now completed with the cables that will be required for later on. And as I was mentioning, after that's completed, Jessica is going to go down on one side of the area where they were, put the DDCU jumpers, while Chris is moving now to the race ring, as I mentioned before, to take a snapshot of the current state. So here he goes. He takes a few pictures for us to understand the state. And then he comes back. Once he comes back to the same location where we had cinched down the 2 bags, he will begin now the torque reset, like I mentioned before. So open the cable bag, get the tool that he needs, and then he begins the torque resets for several of the boxes that you see here. And once that is completed, Chris is coming back to the airlock. Like I had mentioned before, here's where he starts doing the microorganisms. So you can see that he has the canisters on his side. He brings in the tool, he does the swabbing, and then he puts it back into the tool. At the moment he puts it on the tool, he locks in the sample, and so he goes for the next sample. There is 5 samples that we're going to do for a total of, there's 7 samples that we're gonna go do. The minimum number for our activity this go around is 5 samples. So in this specific view, you'll see him going back inside the airlock to do 2 of the swaps that he has on his SCU. In the meantime, Jessica now has made it to a location on the truss where the robotic arm gets closer to her. She puts the cover on the camera itself for the robotic arm, and then the robotic arm moves out of the way, and she makes it back to the airlock. Okay, and here you see Jessica putting the cable back inside, and then back inside the airlock for the end of our EVA. And that will conclude EVA 94. Now, let me go ahead and then hand it over to Ronak, who will cover EVA 95.
Thank you, Deanna. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Yeah, we'll get started. Let's go ahead and pull up the graphics for EVA 95. My name is Ronak Dave, and I'll be the lead flight director for that EVA. So again, big picture, our job will be to go install the modification kit that the structure required for the rollout solar arrays on the 3 Bravo power channel. We do have some additional get-ahead tests that are noted on the chart here. We'll be doing some torque reset ourselves potentially, and then also preparing a pump module to just get into a better config if we were to ever need it. One thing to also note on here that we'll see in the video that's not explicitly listed as a task is we're actually going to set up the work site for the 3 Bravo power channel for the actual install of the IRO. So those are really long EVAs, so we're going to do some get ahead to prepare the work area for the next crew to come out to ensure that we're keeping time on that EVA. So similarly, you'll see our work sites here mainly are going to be the 3 Bravo, the furthest most starboard side of the station. We'll be going to the S6 truss segment and working on that beta gimbal assembly. And then if we get to our get aheads, we'll be closer inboard at the 1 alpha integrated equipment assembly area where we would do our torque reset. And then similarly on a support platform in that area to prepare a pump module. Next chart. So this is a better picture. We're looking at port 6, but to give you, again, some more insight onto the equipment and how it fits together. So Diana had some great imagery of building up the modification kit, and this kind of shows us how eventually we'll install the actual rollout solar array to that structure where those cables will come into play for the installation EVAs when we get there. Next chart, please. So similarly, after the 2 alpha, that'll be 7 of 8 power channels done. So we will be the last modification kit, at least on the main power channels that we're putting together on 3 Bravo. Next chart. Okay, those were all the graphics we had, so we'll go ahead and go to the video and kind of do a narration of our spacewalk, and I apologize for saying a lot of the things Deanna said again, but some of the choreography is very similar. So similarly for us, we'll have EV1 egress out of the airlock first. They'll get handed out the strut bag, which is a fairly substantial bag. It's about 8 feet long, along with the cable bag. Once EV2 egresses, they'll be handed the cable bag. And then EV1 will start heading out towards the starboard 6 location. This is pretty far, so they actually end up setting up safety tethers for both crew members and what we call slingshot to get both the crew members as far outboard as we do. Similarly, EV2 will be making a pit stop to pick up what we call a WIFX, a worksite interface extension piece of hardware. They'll then install that at our worksite along with the APFR, the portable foot restraint, to get into a position to be able to install the hardware. In that time, EV1 will be putting together the upper triangle that you saw assembled on 2 alpha. We will be actually building out at the worksite. So EV1 will go ahead and assemble that full upper triangle at that integrated equipment assembly. And once that assembly is complete, they'll hand that upper triangle up to EV2 to actually snap into the canister of the BGA. Once that upper triangle is assembled, we start into the struts. So we'll first fasten down that upper triangle, and then we'll, similarly to 2 alpha, start building out the right strut and the left strut. So that'll first get handed up to the APFR, the foot restraint crew member, while the bottom spherical bolts are driven by EV1. And those get torqued down, and then the EV1 crew member will swing around to the other side to assemble the mid strut. So that'll, again, be fastened to the side of the BGA. And then the APFR crew member will fasten that to the center upper triangle platform. Once those are complete, the free-floating EV1 crew member will go grab the second, in this case the left strut, again fly over to the other side of the BGA, and we'll get those installed in a very similar fashion to the right strut. And once those are torqued down, similarly we'll install the mid strut on that side and fasten those both to the canister side and then the platform of the upper triangle. Once that's complete, we go ahead and route some cables for the eventual install of the rollout solar array. And this is also where we tighten some bolts on the mid struts, which have collars on them. They're kind of extending, telescoping rods. So those will get tightened down along with cinching all the MLI, the thermal insulation down. We'll route those cables. I noted preparing the worksite for the IROSA. So one of the big tasks we have after the full assembly is complete is actually relocating that equipment to different locations in the area of 3 Bravo to ensure that those are in adequate positions to save time for the installation EVA. We'll then clean up our bags and start headed back to the airlock with EV2 heading in first, handing in the cable bag, followed by EV1. So that's all I had for you. Again, thank you guys so much for being here, and look forward to your questions.
Great, and thank you to our briefers for those opening remarks. We will now start with some questions in the room and on the phone bridge as well as social media. Again, if you're on our phone bridge, you can press *1 to submit your name into the queue. If you do find your question has already been asked, simply press *2 to withdraw it. And on social media, use the hashtag #AskNASA to submit a question. Looks like we do have a question here in the room. Mark?
Thank you. Mark Carreau with Aviation Week and Space Technology. My question is about the launch of the two IROSAs. Do you have like an approximate time frame for launching them to the space station? Will both of them go on the same cargo mission, or will it take two?
Yeah, sure. We're targeting later this year to get those flown. It actually flies as kind of a set of two rollout solar arrays on one pallet inside a Dragon trunk. So they stack one on top of each other, and they fly that way. So we'll have two of them show up at once. So we'll be able to do both the 2 Alpha and the 3 Bravo then, once they arrive.
The spacewalks that would follow, will that possibly be done this year, or you'll just have to see? Could go into next year.
No, we'll do them when the arrays arrive. So whenever the IROSAs arrive on orbit is when we will go do those EVAs. We don't want to leave them sitting up there for a long period of time, uninstalled and rolled up. So we try to minimize the time that we have them there.
Richard T. with the Post newspaper. Questions for you, Bill. So a couple of real quick questions about the different EVAs. One, capacity for the ISS as far as electrical capacity. Obviously, the IROSAs are being installed, those that have been installed in the past and the future, to increase capacity. What is that theoretical capacity, if you have that number? And also, the addition of these that are coming up, is that to handle future experiments that are going to require that extra capacity?
It's a great question. I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head. These are the IROSAs. As you can see, the size is much smaller, but they represent basically the same amount of power output of what we have on our solar arrays, the larger ones, because of the change in efficiency in cells over time. We have to wire them in a certain way, so there's only so much power we can get out, but it basically returns us to our original kind of power capability on a channel. Now, that capacity is used in a lot of different ways. So we can use it to maximize, so our architecture is channelized. So we have 8 power channels on board the space station, and each one feeds a certain set of loads. And so when one channel doesn't produce as much power, now I have to limit what I do on that channel. And so this will allow us to be more balanced in everything that we do. It provides us advantages for just trying to get the most out of station that we want to between now and the end of life, as well as providing advantages to us for the final disposal of ISS. As we've talked about previously, we have to, as we get really low in the atmosphere, we have to park our solar arrays, but we still have to power everything that we need for that final disposal. And so having these solar arrays up there actually really helps balance that load out as well for that. So it's twofold. We get the advantage today, and then we get the advantage eventually at the end of space station.
Thank you. We are going to jump over to the phone bridge. We have a question from Will Robinson-Smith with Spaceflight Now.
Hi, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today. A couple for Bill Spetch as well. Jumping off of the power augmentation question that was just asked, with Congress intending to extend station life out to 2032 at this point, obviously that legislation is still working its way through the Hill, but would this additional 2 IROSAs be enough to extend the station life to that extra 2 years, or do you imagine there may need to be additional power augmentation later down the road? And then secondly, as far as upcoming vehicles heading to the station, is NASA still protecting for the possibility of Starliner 1, the cargo version, flying sometime in April, or has that been adjusted? Thanks.
So to your first one, it's not appropriate for us to comment on pending legislation. So from that aspect, I'm gonna stay away from that. We know how to address power on the ISS regardless, and we manage within the capabilities that we have. We have a lot of opportunities to throttle that if we need to for whatever situation we get into. On the question on Starliner, You know, as the administrator said, we're still working through the corrective actions that came out of our investigation team, and we're going to fly that flight when we're ready to go fly it. So.
Thank you. We do have another question on the phone bridge. This is from Bill Harwood with CBS News.
Hey, Bill. Just following up on Will Robinson-Smith's question, and I'm trying to think of a way to ask this that you'll be comfortable answering. Regardless of what happens in legislation or political down the road, regardless of that, I remember talking to Mike Suffredini many years ago about certifying the station to get it to 2030 and all the things that had to be done to verify the vehicle would be good for that. Will some sort of analysis be required if you get direction to extend the life of the station? Anything you can tell me about that? Thanks.
Oh, yeah. Now, we definitely have to do analytical work to go extend the station. There are a lot of factors that play into that. We look at one of the major life contributors to the station is actually just the orbital cycling of the thermal loads on the structure. So as you can imagine, as you work a metal back and forth in a structure, it fatigues over time, right? And so we've designed the station to handle all those thermal loads, but it does have a finite life at some point in time. Now, where does that end up being? We do analysis. We actually have analysis that goes and looks at the extension, and we're informed by analysis that we do of the events that we've seen so far. And because we try to be conservative in all the things that we do in our look forward so that we're not caught off guard by something. And then when things go better, or we use less load for events, we don't have the worst case docking scenario or the worst case maneuver scenario, then we get to take advantage of that. And so we have two programs that kind of run in parallel with that from an analysis standpoint. So yes, it does take us analysis to go look beyond 2030, and we have the means to go do that.
Great. We are getting a couple of questions on social media. As a reminder, you can submit yours using the hashtag AskNASA. This first one comes from Copacetic on Instagram, who wants to know, how long does it take to plan a spacewalk, and what factors do you consider during planning?
You want to take it?
Yeah, that sounds good. All right, I will take that question, and then I will also pass on to Ronak, who can add to it. How long does it take to plan a spacewalk? I think that a few things that we take into consideration. One of them is we go ahead and dry run the activity itself on the NBL, which is one of our pools that we have nearby, where we have the space station submerged as a mock-up itself. We go through all the execution of all the steps of that activity to make sure that we have not only done it effectively, but also efficiently, given the fact that we're going to have the crew members outside. In addition to that, there's a lot of preparation that we take to make sure that the procedures are correctly done. Plan A, Plan B, the creep sheets, which is what we call it when we go into any of the troubleshootings that we need to do, which ones are the areas that we might be concerned of, so we can also write plans for that and be ready for the nominal case, and then also be ready for the unnominal cases as well. And also, in addition to that, we talk to the crew leading into the EVA. It's about 2 weeks or so that we start the preparation with them on board. The preparation on the ground starts earlier than that. But on board, we start the preparation of their suits, making sure everything is on as we expected. We understand if there's anything that we need to work on the suit or adjust. As you can imagine, as the humans rotate with the same suits, we need to adjust the suits for the new humans that are getting in. And then also do all the crew conferences to ensure that their questions and our questions are all lined up so we can go out the door and do it in the time that we have allocated. Ronak, what else would you like to add to it?
Yeah, no, I think that was a great answer. I think it's also worth just noting that every EVA is different. There's some tasks that we know are going to exist in sometime in the future, things like the mod kits that we've done before. We've done 6.5 of them, and every single time we've had a fun and unique challenge where we get into the crib sheet and start to do some troubleshooting and let the ops team kind of earn their keep that day. Then there's EVAs like we did a few years ago with AMS, which is very development heavy. That takes years of time to just develop what we're going to do, build new tools. So the timelines of all of those are really flexible and are driven by what objectives we're trying to accomplish outside.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it, because not all EVAs are created equal in terms of what it takes to go plan one and what it takes to go execute one. We've done a lot of work ahead of time on what we call the contingency EVAs that we have planned for the big ones that we have to go do. If we have a major failure outside of ISS and we have to get out the door quickly to go fix that, we can get out the door very quickly to go resolve one of those. But when you get into a new task, it just depends on how complicated it is. It took us a long time to figure out how to go do these mod kits the first time through. Probably on the order of a year to a year and a half to go figure that out. Because again, you were in the middle of the design work at the same time and the build and everything that goes along with it. Other tasks where it's an ORU, an orbital replacement unit that we know how to replace, we built it to go do that. It can be a shorter planning time, but we still have to go look at all the tasks within an EVA, and it just takes some time to build that choreography, practice it, build the procedures, make sure that we're all in a good spot for all of the different what-ifs that could happen during a spacewalk. So the ops team does a great job of adapting to the program's priorities and fitting really within the timeline that we give them based on the urgency of the task.
Thank you. And as a reminder, if you are on the phone bridge and would like to submit a question, please press *1. We do have another social media question from Al on Instagram who wants to know, how have spacewalk operations changed throughout the years?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I'll start and we'll pass it down the horn. I think one of the biggest things that has changed is actually how we prepare for spacewalks. So one of the big things that we are looking to mitigate when we go outside for a spacewalk is decompression sickness, and the means in which we do to prepare the crew to not get into those circumstances. So over the years, we've gone through very many different permutations of a pre-breathe protocol, or trying to eliminate bubbles of nitrogen in the blood to really preclude getting into those conditions. I think that's one of the places I'd say for sure that we've had learning and improvement over time. I think the tools and how we do spacewalks have really been changed and innovated by the unique and new objectives that we given outside, where there's sometimes where we've, like Bill mentioned, in some of these critical EVA situations where we're opening up new toothbrushes and 4-gauge wire to clean out bolt stanchions, because this really was our only option to put all the tools on the table and create something over the course of a weekend to get a major power bus back up. So I think a lot of our change has been driven by innovation and need.
Yeah, and I will add to that as well that some of the changes are also coming from the suits themselves. And what I mean with that is we've been using the suits, this specific generation of the suits, for a while. And so what we need to do on the ground is be more agile at understanding what are the different ways that the suit can have more information, more data, different ways that they are behaving. And so now is the adjustment of the creep sheets or the cuff check, meaning how do we respond to a suit issue as new things are coming in. I think that this is something that's expected. Also affects the task, for example, right? When we talked about contingency EVAs earlier today, or earlier with Bill on the prior question, is the fact that the contingency EVA tasks are things that we need to think about as the space station is aging. So it's an interesting question, because you think about, yes, the suits and the station is something that we understand really well today, but as it ages, then we need to be very agile on the operations team to be able to respond. And then even as we are creating or dry running or doing these tasks, as we're building on the procedures, is recognizing that things can change any moment in a way that we didn't expect it, and we need to respond. In our EVA, for example, in my particular 2 Alpha EVA, half of the mod kit is already assembled outside. The other half is what we're going to go do, as I showed you guys earlier. It's understood that when we go out there, the structure is already outside, half of it is not. So will we experience challenges with the bolts? That's what we get ready for, right? And so it's the same thing for any of the other tasks.
Yeah, I think taking a broader look at what's changed over time. So if you look back at station assembly over the course with the space shuttle program and building up the station, what we used to do was we had a plan for a set of EVAs that we were going to do on that mission. That particular crew trained for exactly those tasks, and they did them over and over again in the pool. Today, we don't have that luxury, right? We have a lot of our training. They do get the critical contingency EVAs, that each crew gets a look at those. But most of it is task-based, and then we do a lot of onboard training for the crew for the specifics of what they're going to go do outside. there are cases where a crew can experience something in the NBL here. There are a lot of cases where they don't, and it's just a skill-based thing that we work with the crews on and really build them up to do any of the tasks that we need to do outside, and then we do the training on orbit. So there's less of the practice this specific thing in the NBL over and over again, and more of I know how to do these things, and it applies to all of these different possible options outside of ISS.
Absolutely.
And it does look like that is all the questions that have been submitted today. So thank you to our briefers for taking time out of their very busy space station operations schedule to participate today. And thank you to everyone who tuned in. We do hope that you will join us for coverage of the first spacewalk on Wednesday, which will begin at 6:30 a.m. Eastern. So that will do it for us today. Thanks again so much for tuning in.